This is world population in 1600. When we get to 1700, it's going to start increasing a little bit faster. And by the time we get to 1950, it's going to do this, which can be a little scary. But believe it or not, there's a lot of good news about the shape of this chart, and it's going to start changing again. And when it does, it's going to be a big deal for the economic world. I'm Mike from Canavan Wealth. Let's see what I'm talking about. Let's start by just looking at the United States. This is a graph of US population, births, and deaths. The population numbers have been normalized, which just means I've adjusted them to make them fit on the graph. The shape is accurate, but the values are not. We can see that US population has been steadily growing over the last 70 years, and as expected, so has the number of people dying. If there are more people in the country, we would expect more people to be dying each year. This spike recently is the effects of COVID. You can also notice that there are more people being born each year than there are dying, so population is increasing. No surprise there. However, birth numbers are much more erratic, being sort of level, which doesn't make sense. If there are more people in the country each year, you would expect total number of births to be increasing. To understand this, let's get rid of the number of deaths and replace it with the fertility rate, which is the average number of kids each female has. You can see how the fertility rate is what gives the number of births line its shape. However, this is a rate, so it doesn't increase just because the population is higher. In fact, fertility rate came down dramatically from 1960 to 1980, and since 1990, it's done nothing but come down. Most importantly, for the last 50 years, it's been at or below 2. That's important because 2.1 is the replacement rate. If each woman has an average of 2 kids, they are replacing themselves and a male, which keeps the population the same. It's 2.1 because not everyone lives to a ripe old age, which throws the numbers off a bit. If we're below the replacement rate, then why is population still going up? That's best explained by looking at these population pyramids. This is the US in 1960. Each age group is labeled on the left, and you can see that most of the population is concentrated in the younger generations at the bottom. But fast forward to 1980, and you start to see the effects of the dropping fertility rate. And by 2000, the chart starts to look like a column instead of a pyramid. The baby boomers are clearly visible in this little bulge, but otherwise we see the same number of children being born every 5 years. Look at it recently in 2020, and it's even more dramatic. The pyramid is starting to look really top-heavy. Population projections for 2050 look like this. The reason the population is still growing despite dropping fertility rates is because humans live a long time, and there's a 70-year lag between birth and death. We're simply leveling off at the new birth rate. If you remember, the fertility rate dropped dramatically back in 1970. Add 70 years to that, and in 2040, this trend will stop, and the population will level off, or possibly start dropping. You're probably thinking, yeah, but that's just the US, and we're a fraction of the world's population. Overpopulation is a problem in so many places in the world. Well, the facts might surprise you. Here's a pie chart of the world's population by continent. The unlabeled purple is South America, and the tiny sliver at the top is Australia. Now let's overlay the fertility rate of those continents. Surprised? There is literally one continent in the world with a fertility rate above the replacement rate of 2.1. Africa only makes up about 16% of the world's population, and the fertility rates there have been dropping. The development of the world over the last 40 years has been dramatic. Quality of life has come up everywhere, including modern healthcare, and with that, just like it has in the developed world, fertility rates have dropped dramatically. We can look at the same population pyramids for the world. Here it is in 1950, 2000, and lastly, the projections for 2050. It's the same unmistakable trend. Population is about to level off. The UN projects population to level off below 11 billion by 2070. Even their 80% confidence band has it leveling out no higher than 12 billion. And for the record, the UN has been predicting world population for a long time, and they have a good track record. Here are all their projections laid out on top of each other going back decades. They have an impressive record. But why does this matter for your investments? Much of the growth that you expect out of your investments is based on companies getting bigger. While world population is going up, the total number of consumers in the world is also going up. Companies cannot just steal market share from their competitors, but their own market share itself is getting bigger. That's not the whole story, though. We also have to understand what percentage of the world's population are modern companies able to sell to. We measure how developed a nation is with the Human Development Index, or HDI. You can see the world here in 1990 with struggling nations in red and yellow and more modernized nations in blue. It's reasonable to think that a blue nation is one that a modern company can market to. Here you can see the change in the world just over the last 30 years. It's remarkable how much of the world has developed. We're really in the perfect situation. Not only are the total number of people on Earth still increasing, but the percentage of them that are developed consumers is also increasing. The companies we invest in here in the US often see growth selling goods and services outside our borders, where a rapidly developing population is providing all sorts of new opportunities. However, both of those things are likely to come to an end in the next 20 to 40 years. World population will level off, and most of the world is likely to finish developing. In the not too distant future, the total number of consumers will start decreasing. That's going to be a big change for the economic world. This is not a doomsday situation. In fact, right now we're in this perfect storm of rapidly rising world population as well as a rapidly developing world. Creates this almost feeding frenzy-like situation of modern companies trying to satisfy all this new demand. However, the storm is going to end. Trying to predict what that economy is going to look like is extremely difficult. But I find it hard to believe that it's going to look like the last 70 years that we've gone through. There'll be a whole new set of economic norms. I suspect we won't start seeing the impact of this for, let's say, another 20 years. But for young investors or those worried about generational wealth, it's very important that we're continuing to look to the future and kind of understand how this is going to play out. I hope this has been informative. If you like the content and would like to see more, please consider subscribing. Thank you. I'll talk to you soon.